I woke to chainsaws tearing through my land, watched my entire Christmas tree farm being stolen in real time, and realized the HOA president selling my trees had no idea she just committed a felony that would destroy everything she touched. If you believe real justice beats intimidation and bullies always overplay their hand, subscribe, because this story proves paperwork, patience, and proof can end even the most entitled power grab. Friday morning arrived screaming. Not metaphorically, not emotionally, literally. Chainsaws ripped through the cold air outside my bedroom window, their mechanical shriek cutting straight into my chest before my feet even hit the floor. I knew that sound. I'd spent months working among those trees, caring for them, counting them, planning our future one harvest at a time. When I stepped outside, frost crunching under my boots, my stomach dropped. Fresh stumps bled sap into frozen soil. Commercial tire tracks scarred the ground like claw marks. 2,000 mature Fraser firs were gone. $23,000 worth of trees. My daughter's college fund reduced to debris before sunrise. A handwritten note had been zip-tied to my gate. The handwriting was confident, smug, rehearsed. It claimed legal seizure of abandoned commercial inventory under Agricultural Lien Authority, signed by Magnolia Patterson, HOA president. She was already selling my trees to waiting buyers, cash changing hands while diesel fumes hung over my land. The lie was audacious enough to almost sound official. Almost. My 40-acre farm sat 200 feet outside her HOA jurisdiction, surveyed, documented, and paid for in full. What she had done wasn't enforcement. It was theft. And she'd done it in broad daylight. I'm Rex Thornfield. I'm 52, a disabled Army veteran with a back held together by hardware after an IED in Afghanistan. 18 months earlier, my wife Sarah died of cancer. The medical bills flattened us. Her life insurance payout was the last thing she ever gave our family, and I used every dollar of it to buy this Christmas tree farm. 40 acres of pine, air that smelled like hope, and a future I could still build for my twin daughters, Emma and Grace. Walking those rows for the first time felt like breathing again. Pine needles under my boots, mountain air in my lungs, silence that didn't hurt. The farm was exactly 200 feet beyond the Willowbrook Hills HOA boundary. I measured it myself. Twice. Completely legal. Completely mine. I thought that was enough. That's when Magnolia Patterson entered my life. She arrived in a white Range Rover like she owned the county. Perfectly styled hair, tennis clothes that cost more than my truck, and a smile that never reached her eyes. She introduced herself as HOA president and local Christmas tree distributor in the same breath. She talked fast, confident, practiced. She wasn't offering help. She was offering control. Magnolia ran a polished Christmas tree operation every year. Pre-orders from upscale neighborhoods. Hundreds of families paying premium prices for what they believed were locally sourced trees. She collected massive deposits, promised delivery, and controlled the market through intimidation and paperwork. Her model only worked if she controlled the supply. And she just lost 2 of her usual sources. The day after I signed my deed, she showed up at my gate with a partnership offer. I would cut. She would sell. 60-40. In her favor. I declined. I planned to sell directly to families. Honestly, affordably. Her tone changed instantly. Sweetness snapped into warning. She told me I didn't understand how things worked around here. She hoped I wouldn't make things difficult for myself. As she drove away, she photographed my best trees. My daughters loved the farm immediately. Emma started running numbers, calculating margins, planning spreadsheets. Grace wanted hot chocolate, music, families walking rows together. For the first time since their mother died, they were excited about something that didn't involve survival, that mattered more than profit. Magnolia didn't stop watching. She asked neighbors about my finances. She posted cryptic messages online about abandoned agricultural properties and unpaid debts. She studied lien laws. She prepared paperwork. I didn't realize it then, but she was building a legal costume for theft, one forged document at a time. The first certified letter arrived claiming I owed $25,000 in outstanding agricultural equipment liens. The letterhead looked official enough to scare most people. It didn't scare me. It sent me to the courthouse. 3 hours in the basement records room told the truth. No estate. No liens. No debt. The letter was fiction. I also found something else. Magnolia had tried this before. Multiple times. Other farmers. Same letterhead. Same tactic. 2 had paid. 1 had lost his land. She escalated. Code enforcement showed up after she filed a complaint claiming my farm was abandoned commercial property. The officer looked embarrassed standing among healthy trees and fresh paint. Everything I owned was documented and legal. He warned me someone was using fraudulent paperwork. Then Emma overheard Magnolia selling my trees in a coffee shop. She wasn't bluffing. She was executing. That's when I understood the scope of what I was facing. This wasn't an HOA dispute. This was organized fraud. Magnolia had customers, contracts, fake documents, and a deadline she couldn't miss. She needed my trees, and she intended to take them. What Magnolia didn't know was that I had already started documenting everything. And when the chainsaws finally came, I was ready to let her finish the mistake she'd been planning from the beginning. I didn't confront Magnolia immediately. Anger makes noise, and noise warns predators. Instead, I walked the damage in silence, counting stumps, photographing tire tracks, breathing through the cold until my hands stopped shaking. 2,000 trees gone. Entire rows stripped clean. Whoever cut them knew exactly which ones to take. Mature Fraser firs, straight trunks, perfect shape. This wasn't vandalism. It was a commercial harvest. The note at the gate wasn't meant for me. It was meant for anyone who questioned her authority. Fake confidence wrapped in fake law. Agricultural lien authority. Words chosen to scare farmers who didn't know better. But I did know better. And more importantly, I knew how people like Magnolia operated. They relied on victims panicking, paying, or freezing. None of those were options. I checked the hidden cameras first. 4 different angles showed everything. Magnolia's Range Rover pulling up just before dawn. 2 flatbed trucks. A rented skid steer. Men in work jackets unloading chainsaws like this was a legitimate job site. Magnolia walking the rows with a clipboard, pointing, directing, smiling. Cash envelopes exchanged near the trailers. License plates clear enough to read without zooming. Faces visible. Voices recorded. Laughter. Jokes. Zero hesitation. She wasn't hiding because she didn't think she needed to. That's when the second realization hit me. She hadn't just stolen from me. She'd sold my trees to families who believed her paperwork. Hundreds of people would wake up to Christmas trees that were evidence in a felony. And Magnolia had built just enough legal smoke to make them think they were safe. I spent the rest of that morning making calls. The first was to the county clerk. I requested certified copies of my deed, boundary survey, agricultural permit, and zoning classification. The second was to the state agricultural office. I asked one question. Had any liens ever been filed against my property? The answer was immediate and absolute. No. The third call mattered most. I contacted Detective Walsh in the State Fraud Division. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't rant. I told her exactly what happened, what I had on video, and what Magnolia was claiming. There was a pause on the line. Then her tone changed. "Don't touch anything," she said. "And don't warn her." By noon, I learned something that turned my anger into focus. Magnolia Patterson wasn't new to this. She was already under quiet investigation. Agricultural fraud, forged liens, fake seizure orders, multiple counties, multiple victims. But every previous case had the same problem. No real-time evidence. By the time farmers realized what had happened, the crops were gone and the money laundered. My cameras changed that. Detective Walsh arrived that afternoon with a banker's box and a look that told me this wasn't just about trees anymore. She spread files across my kitchen table while the smell of pine sap drifted through the open door. Photos of other farms. Burned barns. Foreclosure notices. One file ended with a veteran's suicide note. Magnolia's pattern was precise. Identify financially vulnerable landowners. Invent debt. Forge authority. Seize assets fast. Sell to good faith buyers. Disappear behind paperwork before anyone caught up. She's been perfecting this for years, Walsh said. And she overplayed it with you. The reason was simple. Magnolia had already taken deposits from over 400 customers. She owed nearly $200,000 in deliveries. She'd spent the money. If she didn't produce trees, the fraud collapsed on itself. My farm wasn't a target of opportunity. It was her emergency solution. That's when Walsh told me what they needed. They needed her caught in the act. Not just cutting trees. Not just loading trucks. But completing the transaction. Transfer of stolen goods. Exchange of money. Enough to trigger federal charges that would take down the entire network. It meant waiting. Waiting while knowing more trees might fall. Waiting while trusting cameras and timing instead of instinct. Waiting while the woman who destroyed my wife's last gift believed she was winning. I agreed. That night, surveillance expanded quietly. More cameras. Overlapping angles. Audio capture. Remote uploads. Nothing visible. Nothing obvious. Magnolia was arrogant, not cautious. She wouldn't check for traps because she believed she was the authority. Meanwhile, her pressure campaign intensified. My equipment supplier called to say my account was suspended after my partner reported disputes. My insurance agent called asking about irregularities. Transport companies backed out. Magnolia wasn't just stealing inventory. She was trying to shut down my ability to sell anything afterward. Then the rumors started. She told people I worked for her. That I was unstable. That my farm was under investigation. Customers called demanding I honor contracts I'd never signed. One father yelled at me over the phone, terrified his kids wouldn't have a tree. Magnolia had shown him documents claiming ownership of my land. Every lie was documented. Emma helped quietly, gathering screenshots, timestamps, and posts Magnolia thought were private. Grace stayed close to me, sensing danger without fully understanding it. I sent them to their aunt's house that evening. I needed them away when this came to a head. The final escalation came Thursday night. A new post appeared in Magnolia's private customer group announcing an emergency authorized harvest scheduled for Friday night. Premium inventory. Court-backed recovery. Delivery guaranteed. She was doing it again. But this time we were ready. Detective Walsh called it in. Federal warrants were prepared. Unsigned but waiting. Agents positioned. Buyers unknowingly lined up as witnesses. All we needed was Magnolia to do what she always did. Steal. Friday night fell cold and quiet. I sat in the trailer watching live feeds, hands wrapped around a mug that had gone cold hours earlier. At 9:15, headlights appeared at the tree line. The same trucks. The same crew. Magnolia stepped out, confident, clipboard in hand. The first chainsaw screamed to life. And this time, every second of her crime was being recorded by people who knew exactly what to do with it. I didn't move. I didn't intervene. I let Magnolia Patterson finish destroying herself, one illegal cut at a time. I watched the theft unfold through 6 different camera angles, each one clearer than the last. Magnolia didn't rush. She didn't panic. She moved through my farm like a queen inspecting conquered land, pointing out trees, correcting angles, directing traffic. Her confidence was absolute. That was the most dangerous thing about her. She believed paperwork could replace ownership, and that confidence had destroyed dozens of families before mine. By 9:30 p.m., the operation was running at full speed. Chainsaws bit into trunks with mechanical efficiency. Trees fell in perfect sequence, dragged to the access road, wrapped, stacked, and counted. Bruce Patterson supervised loading like a foreman who'd done this 100 times. Because he had. Every detail mattered now. The cameras caught license plates, faces, serial numbers on equipment. Magnolia handing out envelopes thick enough to bend under their own weight. Cash. Not checks. Not invoices. Cash meant she knew exactly what she was doing. Detective Walsh's voice came through my earpiece, low and controlled. Stay put. We need transport and exchange. Minutes felt like hours. Every fallen tree felt personal. Each one represented Emma's tuition, Grace's safety net, Sarah's last act of love. I had to keep reminding myself that stopping Magnolia permanently mattered more than stopping her immediately. At 9:44 p.m., Headlights cut across the far field. Pete's truck. The buyer. He pulled in exactly where Magnolia had staged the transfer. His body language was relaxed, practiced. He believed the paperwork, believed the story, believed this was a legitimate seizure operation. That detail mattered. It meant Magnolia wasn't just stealing. She was laundering theft through unsuspecting third parties. Pete stepped out, carrying a sealed envelope. Magnolia met him halfway. They shook hands. That handshake sealed her fate. "Transaction confirmed," Walsh said. "All units prepare." I barely breathed. Magnolia opened the envelope, counted quickly, then nodded. Bruce signaled the crew to finish loading. The last tree hit the flatbed with a dull thud that echoed through the cold. That sound was the final felony. At 9:47 p.m., the night exploded. Floodlights ignited from 3 directions at once, turning my farm into daylight. Engines cut. Chainsaws died mid-rev. Federal agents surged from the tree line with weapons raised, voices sharp and unmistakable. "Federal agents! Drop everything! On the ground! Now!" Chaos erupted. One worker bolted and slipped on frost-covered needles, face first into the dirt. Another froze, hands in the air, chainsaw still dangling. Bruce tried to step back, then stopped when a red dot settled on his chest. Magnolia didn't run. She spun toward the lights, fury etched across her face as if she could intimidate reality itself. "This is illegal," she screamed. "I have authority. This is a lawful seizure." Detective Walsh stepped forward, calm as stone, holding a folder thick enough to end careers. "So are these forged liens," she said. "So are these fake inspection reports. And so is impersonating a creditor across 3 states." Handcuffs clicked. Magnolia's mouth kept moving even after the words lost meaning. She pointed at me as I stepped out of the trailer, cameras still rolling. "He's lying. He's unstable. He doesn't deserve this land. That was her mistake." The insult landed in the silence like a gunshot. Walsh's expression didn't change, but her voice dropped to ice. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for federal agricultural fraud, conspiracy, grand theft, and wire fraud. Anything else you say will be added to the record." The buyers stood frozen, shock written across their faces as reality crashed through Magnolia's legal theater. Pete dropped his envelope, hands shaking, realizing he'd driven straight into a federal sting. Agents secured the scene with practiced speed. Evidence bags filled. Cash photographed. Trucks impounded. Phones seized. Magnolia was escorted past the rows she'd ordered cut, her confidence evaporating with every step. Local news arrived minutes later, alerted by law enforcement, cameras capturing Magnolia's downfall under the same lights she'd thought protected her. By midnight, it was over. My stolen trees were unloaded and returned to my property under supervision. The damage was done, but the theft was stopped. More importantly, the pattern was broken. Detective Walsh handed me preliminary seizure paperwork as frost settled across the ground. "We froze her accounts," she said. "Houses, vehicles, shell companies. You're not just getting restitution. Every victim is." I didn't answer right away. I was watching agents photograph stumps, catalog evidence, and mark trees that would still be sold legitimately the next morning. My farm looked scarred, but it was still standing. So was my family. Magnolia Patterson left in the back of a federal vehicle, still talking, still blaming, still convinced she'd been wronged. People like her never understand the moment power leaves them. Saturday morning arrived clear and brutally cold. And instead of chaos, something unexpected happened. Cars lined up outside my gate. Families Magnolia had lied to. Customers who'd seen the news. Neighbors who'd heard what happened. Veterans who showed up just to stand nearby. They didn't care about discounts. They cared about doing the right thing. Emma and Grace came home by noon. Emma cried when she saw the trees still standing. Grace hugged me so hard my ribs hurt. "She didn't win," Emma whispered. "No," I said. "She never had a chance." By Christmas Eve, the story had spread statewide. Magnolia's sentencing came faster than anyone expected. 3 years federal prison. Restitution ordered. Lifetime bans from agricultural operations. Her network dismantled piece by piece using evidence from my cameras. The girls' college fund was restored. But the real victory wasn't financial. It was knowing that 43 families across 3 states finally had justice. That Sarah's last gift wasn't stolen. That predators who hide behind paperwork don't get to keep what they take forever. That Christmas, as snow fell between the rows of Fraser firs, my farm wasn't just a business. It was proof. Proof that bullies lose when someone refuses to stay silent. Proof that truth beats authority when evidence backs it. Proof that sometimes, the right thing isn't the safest thing, but it's always worth it. And Magnolia Patterson learned that stealing from the wrong family can cost you everything you thought you controlled. The silence after the storm was almost unsettling. By Christmas morning, my farm felt different. Not quieter, stronger. The kind of quiet that comes after something toxic has been ripped out by the roots. Snow settled gently on the remaining Fraser firs, softening the scars where Magnolia's crew had cut them down. Frost glittered on the stumps like nature's way of marking evidence. Not erased. Preserved. Emma woke before sunrise and stepped onto the porch with a mug of coffee, her breath fogging the air. She didn't speak at first. She just stood there, looking out at the trees like she was counting them all over again. "They're still here," she finally said. Grace came up behind her, wrapping a blanket around both of them. "She didn't take everything." "No," I said quietly. "She just showed us how much it mattered." By 8 a.m., cars were already lining the gravel road. Word had spread faster than I expected. Families who'd planned to buy from Magnolia showed up apologetic, embarrassed, angry on my behalf. Veterans from the local VFW stood at the gate without being asked, coffee thermoses in hand, just making sure no one else tried anything stupid. One man shook my hand and said, "You stood when most people would have folded. That matters." We sold every remaining tree by noon. No markup. No pressure. Just honest prices and honest smiles. Kids ran through the rows laughing, parents snapping photos, couples arguing playfully about which tree was the one. Emma's hot chocolate stand sold out twice. Grace played Christmas music from a battered speaker Sarah had bought years ago. For the first time since the hospital room, joy didn't feel like a betrayal of grief. That afternoon, Detective Walsh stopped by with final updates. Magnolia's accounts were frozen nationwide. Properties seized. Her husband flipped within 48 hours. The fake inspector confessed by Monday. The attorney who forged the documents lost his license before New Year's. Federal prosecutors weren't just charging theft, they were charging pattern fraud, conspiracy, and exploitation of vulnerable victims. "Your footage changed everything," Walsh told me. "This becomes the model case." I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady. The sentencing came in spring. 3 years federal prison. Full restitution. Permanent ban from agricultural operations. Magnolia cried in court, blamed everyone except herself, and never once looked at the victim seated behind me. That told me all I needed to know. The money came back in stages. Enough to restore the farm. Enough to lock in Emma and Grace's college funds. Enough to breathe again. But the real aftermath went beyond numbers. Farmers from other states started calling. Families who'd almost lost everything to similar scams. We shared documents, evidence templates, camera setups, warning signs. What Magnolia did stopped being a secret weapon and became common knowledge. By fall, we created the Sarah Thornfield Agricultural Protection Fund. Legal assistance, emergency grants, education, helping farmers fight back before predators could finish the job. Emma handled the spreadsheets. Grace ran outreach. Watching them take ownership of something that protected others felt like watching grief transform into purpose. On the anniversary of Sarah's passing, we planted new Fraser firs where Magnolia had cut the old ones down. Small saplings. Straight. Green. Alive. "By the time these are ready," Grace said softly, "I'll be done with college." "And they'll still be standing," Emma added. That night, snow fell again. Quiet. Clean. Honest. Magnolia lost her freedom, her money, her fake authority, and her illusion of control. She thought power came from paperwork and intimidation. She learned too late that real power comes from truth, evidence, and refusing to be afraid. My farm survived. My family survived. And every Christmas tree that stands here now means something more than profit. It means she didn't win.